It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, November 19th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's wondering which Flyers will make the Olympic rosters this year.
I wonder that too.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and welcome to Locked On Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. You can win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And we are going to dig into the Flyers roster and who has a potential to make their nation's Olympic teams, plus get to your mailbag questions. There's a lot of good ones. Excited for that. Adam Yinning, we talked about him on yesterday's show quite a bit about the fact that he had not played in a while and it was kind of a waste. He's got some skills that the Flyers could use right about now. And lo and behold, they found some way for him to get some hockey there by sending him to Lehigh Valley on a conditioning assignment. He has not played since October 25th, and he can now spend up to 14 days in Lehigh Valley. He does count against the NHL roster, though, during this time.
Yeah, so you lose a lot roster spot, but at least he plays and he can't get claimed, but it's just temporary. Like it's better than nothing. That's the way I look at it.
It is better than nothing. And as we said on yesterday's show, when we did our Phantoms prospect report, they do have games this week, today, Friday, and Saturday for him to get going. So excited to see how he does. And we will talk about it on next Tuesday's Phantoms prospect report. Now, the other guy we talked about quite a bit related to Yinning in terms of guys who hadn't played in a bit was Egor Zamula. And to me, this announcement about Yinning just kind of emphasized the fact that Zamula could be on the trading block because they didn't do something similar with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing. If he doesn't get into next game, okay, then he should be in the game after. Like they're playing back to back. He should actually play.
He should. And that will be an indicator if he does or
That's
doesn't.
the tell.
It will be. So the Flyers canceled practice yesterday. It was meant to be an optional, and then they just decided to not have it at all. So, we did not get any clues yesterday as to what is happening, but hopefully we will know by tomorrow's show. You will find that out and we'll be able to suss all that out. The Flyers also put a newly acquired defenseman, Max Gwinnett, on waivers. So he'll be in Lehigh Valley for the time being as expected, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't think that much of this move. I don't get excited every time they get a right-handed defenseman because there's plenty of right-handed defensemen that they've had that they've never elevated or used either. So I feel like this is a guy that's, could he fill in a game or two? Sure. And I think that's why they did the two-way, but like, is he a guy who I look at staying long-term? No, I don't.
No, me neither. But, he'll be, I think, a useful guy to have around in Lehigh Valley,
Sure.
like we said. And, especially if they do end up trading Zamula or some other defenseman, I think, or they feel like they need to sit somebody or somebody's hurt that we don't know about that we'll find out,
not
right?
Playing instead of Yinning or Zamula if he makes it through waivers, like he should not be playing over those guys.
Correct. I think you got to put it in the right priority order here for sure. And, we talked a lot about the defenseman overall and, maybe sitting Nick Seeler on yesterday's show just to get a rest for him. And I think the possibilities for changing the pairings are there, and we'll see what the Flyers end up doing over the next few games.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do anything next game now that they didn't practice, but I think maybe the game after for the back-to-back, maybe they'll make a decision for that.
Yeah, We shall see. Just want to also give a shout out to Jason Martinez, a friend of the show, who is dropping the puck tomorrow night for Hockey Fights Cancer Night, which is just an incredible honor, and just so grateful that he's made a recovery the way he has, and I'm very excited for him.
Yeah, I did his Stick to Hockey show for like 2 or 3 years religiously, and it was great. Like, he's a great guy. So I might get emotional. Who knows? But it's nice.
No, when I saw that, I absolutely got emotional. We love Jason, so congratulations to him on all accounts there. We do want to check in on our Flyers players and the potential for them making the Olympic rosters. And I think things look a lot different than they did at the end of Four Nations last season, where we were supposed to have 5 Flyers. There were 4 because Rasmus Ristolainen was injured, of course, and did not play for Team Finland. But I think the biggest surprise was Sam Ersson, because he originally was not supposed to be on Sweden's roster, but Jacob Markstrom was injured, and they needed a replacement. Ersson was in there along with Linus Ullmark and Philip Gustafsson, who were the other 2. And we did not expect Ersson to get a game in. He did. He played very well in the game, despite the loss in that tournament game, but he played really well in it and kind of turned some heads a little bit. He then followed up Four Nations with a men's worlds tournament after the Flyers season ended, and did really well there for Team Sweden as well. So things were kind of looking up for Sam Ersson in terms of the possibility of him making Team Sweden for the Olympics, but things have changed quite a bit this season, right?
They have. I mean, he definitely made the most of an opportunity, and I think that was good for him. But Markstrom's not hurt. Gustafsson's definitely their number 1, and I could see Ullmark making it just because it's Ullmark. And I think that's how they're going to go. And so I don't think he has a chance of making it this time. Now, if he stood on his head, he at least could have made an argument because, you know what? He's been there before and they liked what he did. But the other guys all have bigger names, and Gustafsson's a way better goalie than even the other 2 right now.
Yeah, it is interesting because if you look at all of the goaltenders that are Swedish that are in the NHL, of course, this precludes any goaltenders that are playing in Sweden at the moment. The save percentages are kind of dire for Sam Ersson. He is 10th of 10. In the NHL right now in terms of the save percentage. I don't think he's necessarily playing the worst overall. And the fact that he does have that shootout skill is a plus for him that maybe some of these other goaltenders don't have. But I don't think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough. Like, could you take out your goalie and put him in for a shootout? Yeah, theoretically you could. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to embarrass somebody on an Olympic stage. So I really think it's the other guys. And I think kind of Sam's, the scouts have already been out. Maybe they go out one last time, or this week is the last time. And I think he's lost his opportunity.
Yeah. It is interesting because you have Linus Ullmark, who's had a terrible year by all accounts so far, statistically, record wise. And yet he's still favored to make this roster. And you have to look at other guys who are on the outside looking in. You have Jesper Wallstedt, who is the best Swede in the NHL right now overall, still not technically in the conversation here. And Soderblom in Chicago is also quietly making a case for himself too.
I think the problem is these coaches do not want young players. You're hearing like Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini are having trouble making the Canadian roster. Like, Celebrini shouldn't have trouble making that roster, but he is.
Well, we'll get into Team Canada and what that means, for that. But I think
I'm just saying that's the problem with these Olympics are these younger players are barely going to get a shot.
Right, and I would say especially for the goaltenders,
Yes.
you look at the high pressure nature of this particular Olympic Games in particular, due to it being the first time in a long time. I think
Yep.
a lot of these, national organizations are putting a lot of pressure on these guys and on the coaches and on the GMs, and they just want to go with a known quantity. And I
Yep.
think in net that is more important than maybe some of the other positions.
Yeah, I think in net it even has more emphasis. I agree with that. So yeah, I don't expect him to make it, but he had a good run last year, and that was good for him.
Yeah, well, we have another goaltender to discuss,
Yep.
as well as that Team Canada battle that some Flyers are going to be in. We're going to talk about them and some other guys coming up next.
Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. It prescribes your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL. Don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about adjustments against the St. Louis Blues and see if any of those defensive pairings will change heading into that matchup. You mentioned Team Canada and Macklin Celebrini, who is having a bang-up year so far, and I think the effect that that is having and that conversation is on Travis Konecny in particular. So Konecny was a borderline player at Four Nations. He didn't play in every single game. I thought he played well when he did play,
Yeah, when he played.
But he was not in the final against Team USA, as we famously saw Brad Marchand piggybacking him to get him across the ice to get his medal at the end of the tournament. But he did play for Team Canada at Men's Worlds last year. He had 13 points in 8 games. He was 5th in scoring in that tournament, which was not too shabby. There's lots of really high quality NHLers that did play. And as we talked about in Men's Worlds last year, it was an elevated tournament over past years simply because teams were looking to kind of scout and for guys to make their case for the Olympic teams.
Yeah. I think last year Konecny is different from this year's Konecny. I think we could see it in the points. I think we could see it with the attitude. I think he just doesn't have that same killer instinct yet. And, I know for a fact Canada came through once already when he wasn't doing well. So I don't think that was good. I don't know if they're going to come back through. And if they don't, it's probably going against them right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for sure for him to even be in the conversation, because he's not even really on anybody's list as far as the extras go at this point. And he was kind of barely a fourth liner, if that, last time around. And, it's no shade on him as a player.
No, I mean,
It's
just a stacked team. Like, just for
mean,
another country, he'd make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
maybe not the US. I shouldn't say that, but a
Well,
couple of other
yes.
countries.
Yes. Now, Travis Sanheim, on the other hand, I think he's projected as an extra right now, and that's where he was projected at this time last year, right? And his game kind of elevated, and with some injuries as well, he became a very critical part of Team Canada's blue line. And I don't think his offense is where it was last year, but I also don't think that that's necessarily how Canada would see him either. And his two-way game and his defensive play is just as good as it was last year. And his minutes have gone down just slightly enough that I feel like the wear and tear isn't there either. And I think this is going to be the really interesting part of Team Canada's selection process.
Yeah, I could see him making it. I think the role is there for him. Agreed, he'd be an extra. Agreed, he could just play somewhere in the lineup. But I don't think they're looking for him for offense. I do think they're looking for a guy that if somebody gets hurt, you could throw him in there and he's not going to hurt you and he might make some plays. And I think he can do that. And I think he has a real good chance.
Yeah, I think so too. But I do think that if he could just get his stats up a little
It would
bit,
help.
it would help him for sure to solidify that role
Yeah.
for him. But I certainly think he'll be on the short list before they make final cuts. And
I do
then
too.
it'll just be, you know, when they have to make that final decision, kind of where he is as far as the peaks and valleys of the season.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Now, Rodrigo Abols is definitely on Team Latvia. He was
Yep.
the only Philadelphia Flyers player to be named in the preliminary rosters there. And so very excited to see him play in the tournament and have a reason to cheer for Latvia again, which is always a fun team to cheer for during the Olympics.
Yeah, they are fun. The fans will chant, they'll cheer, they'll be really super into it, even if they're down 5-0. So they are. I like them. I like them when they're in World Juniors. I like them when they're in the Olympics. So yeah, Abols is a lock. He'll be there.
Yeah, excited for that. The aforementioned Rasmus Ristolainen, obviously, as we know, he was initially named to the Four Nations roster last go around, but he didn't go because of injuries. And lo and behold, he's still hurt, and we don't know exactly when he's coming back. Though, as we said, he is skating again. And so it could be sometime in the next several weeks. But, how this relates to Finland and their final roster for the Olympics, who knows? Because they may decide that he's not ready, or there are other guys with more skills that have proven themselves this year.
Yeah, he's a definite maybe. Like that's just
as
the way
they
he's
say.
been for 2 years. It's like I don't know what else to say about the guy. Like the fact that he's skating, great, but like it's hard to even imagine when he'll actually play.
Right. Now, I think obviously last year during Four Nations, we were just thinking Sam Ersson was the only goaltender that we were going to have in the conversation. But Dan Vladar's here now, and he's looking to be probably the backup for Czechia this year. And Dostal is going to be the number one, it looks like. But still, Dan Vladar played for Czechia at Worlds and was the second best goaltender in that tournament. And it was really only because the Swiss goaltender faced the most incredible barrage of shots known to man in their games. And that's why that guy's stats were better. But I would say as far as NHL goaltenders go, he had the best men's worlds tournament last year, 1.09 goals against average, 951 save percentage. He's currently the best Czech goaltender in the NHL by save percentage and goals against average. So even though I think he will still end up as the backup, his stats are showing otherwise right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Dobish was probably the leader a couple weeks ago. So but that's fallen off a bit. So
and he'll probably be third.
Yeah, he'll be third. I mean, they're good in that. Like they have 3 good goalies. So, but I think you've handicapped it the right way.
Yeah, so excited that we'll have another goaltender, even if Sam Ersson doesn't make the cut. Dan Vladar will.
The goalies are always a big focus, so we'll have a lot to cover.
Yeah, really excited about that. Now, here's where I have a big question, because Team USA has a huge stacked roster, and we saw it in Four Nations, we saw it at Worlds, and Trevor Zegras was nowhere near that conversation last year. His play wasn't anywhere near being under consideration, but I feel like he should be this year based on his play thus far. And from the other end of the spectrum, we talked about Sam Ersson and his shootout goaltending ability. Shootouts come up a lot in these tournaments, or they seem to, right? Especially in USA versus Canada, and especially because you can use the same guy multiple times in the shootout. And Zegras is a master at this. And I would say you don't bring him just for that. under normal circumstances, but I think the rest of his play warrants him being in the discussion.
I think he'd be in the discussion. He's going to have a hard time because as a winger, he doesn't have a lot else to offer. I think they're going to bring more centers and maybe even like guys with just a little better speed, like someone like Clayton Keller might have the inside track on him. And so I kind of feel like if there's an injury, I think he has a chance of making it. But if he had something else to offer, and I think that's going to be the problem with Bill Guerin, I don't think the shootout is enough, though.
Right.
They've proven, like you remember years ago, they took Chris Drury, and Brian Burke was just like, he's Chris Drury, I don't care. And I could see
Right.
Guerin doing something like that too.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I just think it's interesting because right now Trevor Zegras is 13th in points per game in the NHL for American skaters. Not just
Right.
forwards, but skaters overall. And, 14th on points, just on the number in and of itself. And, we have a situation where, Jack Hughes just had surgery. We have a situation where the Tkachuks are doing a podcast. They're not even playing right now. Right. And so I think like you have to at least put them on that long list, right?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the long list. I think Hughes will be back. I think the knife cutting thing will heal and he'll be back in time. I think there's enough time for that. And I think both Tkachuks will magically play a couple games before they go head over to Italy too. And so I feel like they're all going to play. If one of them shouldn't, yeah, he'll have a chance.
Yeah, I just think, it's important to consider Trevor Zegras. And if he continues to be successful and his scoring continues at the rate that it is, he's going to, write his own ticket into that conversation. And again, Bill Guerin is going to do what Bill Guerin is going to do. And,
Right. He's a little different.
Right. So, who knows? But I feel like we should have talked about him and we didn't.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So we'll see. Just had not anticipated, again, much like with Vladar, having an American in the conversation
Right.
for the Flyers here, but lo and behold, we do. But y'all have some really excellent mailbag questions in terms of systems, in terms of prospects, and all of that. And we are going to get to them coming up next.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. I'm going to go with a switch here and try and bet Donovan Mitchell he plays for Cleveland to lead the league in scoring. I think he gets some good odds right now. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, diving right into the mailbag. John sent us an email saying, I don't see much difference between the coaches, meaning Tocchet and Tortorella from last season. What are your thoughts? Is there really a system?
There is. I think it's hard to see the difference because of the personnel and because so much is predicated on the defensemen kind of bringing the puck up and making things happen with passes and making sure they have clean exits. And a lot of that hasn't happened. And so, like, again, we talked about it. When you don't have Quinn Hughes and you're trying to find that guy who could do that, it's not going to, your system's not going to be carried out exactly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think you can see it in the defense to offense, like transition game as well. That's the difference to me, where Tocchet emphasizes the breakout in a north-south speedway that Tortorella did not. That it was more about the defensive play, and then however you get it out,
make
you
these
get
safe
it out.
passes, make 12 of them if you have to.
Yeah, exactly. Brendan wants to know about how prospects are going to factor in once they start playing with the Flyers, asking how will players like Bump and Martone be slotted in when they're ready to join the team? As of now, the only move I feel confident in predicting is Tocchet putting them both on the fourth line or rotating them in with Hathaway or D'Lo.
No, I get the sarcasm there.
Yeah.
I think if you had Martone, if he comes out, plays a little at the end of the year, I think he's starting on the second line.
Yep.
As far as someone like Bump, I don't think he's going to be ready at the beginning of next year, but it's up to him to kind of push that envelope right now. So I think that's, those are the two. Jet Luchenko, I still think is a far way of making it. I think still needs more seasoning too. So Barkey too, and I'm not going to bring up anybody else because I got to see Oliver Bonk actually play for a while.
Right.
He's been set back. So right now I think that's what you're looking at. And Grabenkin's having a hard time playing, and he should be at least playing fourth line every day and every game, and he's not. So yeah, Martone is the only one that really I feel has an inside track if he comes out.
Yeah, right now I see Bump as a third liner, but I think
he
he
gets
has
there,
potential to jump up if he gets there. But third line is probably where he'll be. Tom sent us an email saying, while defense and goaltending are starting to slip, my real concern is scoring. Russ mentioned hiring a shooting coach more than a few times. I like the direction this team is going with the 3 alums, but what do you think of making John LeClair that guy?
I mean, you could try it, but the problem is I would ask John to talk to an actual shooting coach first. And that's not to denigrate the fact that he was a great scorer in the NHL, but just because he was able to score in the NHL doesn't mean he could teach anybody else to score. Because unless you play the way John does, it might be a hard time. A lot of times these things are born through video and repetition and certain stick angles and a lot of things that John didn't think about when he was playing. So I would prefer they bring in an expert, and he doesn't have to be someone that has an NHL background. I have to stress that. That's
Right.
just because that's what Danny Briere has brought in doesn't mean that is the answer for this, because we saw all the NHLers came in last year and they had a terrible power play. They were all helping on the power play. They were all good power play guys, and in the end, it didn't work. So I feel like, somebody has to have some expertise in that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, I think if you have LeClair working in concert, like you said, with somebody who does the
talks to one
video
of these guys
technical
and they
side
kind
of
of
it.
bring him up to speed, and then he carries that through, I'm good with that.
Yeah, because LeClair could definitely translate that to what you need to do on the ice and
Correct.
tweak somebody's shot, right?
Just
Once
like
they get
going
the
back to
initial
school, you got
coach.
to learn some other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael Goldberg commented, the slow starts are maddening. And yes, I agree. I agree. It has been really difficult. And I think, we're used to the slow starts for the afternoon games, but that has
Right.
started to trickle into some of the evening games as well,
Yeah.
which is a little bit concerning. I mean, there is, a certain degree of confidence that this team can come back because we've seen it. But that being said, I think that, that defensive structure has to be locked in from puck drop.
I mean, yes, they have a chance of coming back because they have been able to, but it's something like a 70% chance of winning when you score the first goal. Like
Right.
it's something ridiculously high. And of course that changes in games. There's injuries, there's things that happen. Maybe the goaltender gives up a couple he's not supposed to, and then the odds change. But that's how it goes. And so like you do kind of wonder how come they can't seem to just come out with their best game right away, like right at puck drop. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Tocchet is well aware of and
Yeah.
has mentioned multiple times, and has said it's on him to change the attitude of the team to make sure they're prepared and are ready to go right away. So
Maybe he needs to show slap shot on the team plane, or I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, that would be a funny way to get the team motivated for sure. Our friend Chris Berry commented, should the team go after Jordan Kyrou? Speaking of upcoming game against the Blues might listen, but where would he fit in, and who would go the other way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if he's going to be made available, you have a cost certainty too with him, and you have term. You saw how he skates. He'd be one of the best skaters, if not the best skater on the team. But it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you maybe Jet Luchenko and Jamie Drysdale and or some other, maybe Nick Seeler, one of those two. It's probably something like that.
Now, this is where I wonder on the return side of things, because we saw Jordan Kyrou get healthy scratched. with the Blues recently. And to me, that devalues a guy, that you shouldn't have to pay that kind of a price when you have somebody who gets healthy scratched and there's some doubt around his game. Now, I understand it is on the St. Louis Blues, and you have to take that into consideration, that they're
Yeah.
just trying anything, right? And
Trying
seeing
to
what's
motivate more than saying he stinks.
right, right. So there is that, but I feel like you should be able to get some sort of discount where you don't have to send that much to
Well, I
get
think
him.
Luchenko would definitely be in the deal. I don't think you can get around that because you're getting an
Right.
all-star player who can score up to 75, 80 points when he's playing right. So I don't think it's anything about that. Could you swap in one defenseman for another? Maybe. But I mean, last 4 years, 75, 73, 67, 70. I mean, that's as good or better than Konecny. So
Now, do you think that the sort of quote unquote discount could be the Blues retaining some salary?
maybe. I mean, and then that could be it too. If the Flyers are giving them the players they really want, then yes, that sometimes is the concession too.
And knock 1.5,
Yeah,
off
it's
the
possible for the first year or two. They won't do it for the
yeah,
whole length.
yeah. But I think that would be helpful in the
It's
grand
possible.
scheme of things.
Yeah,
There, but because he is making 8.125, and that's a
yeah,
lot for the Flyers right now.
for the moment, but it's not going to be that much. And then if they did this deal, I think they would deal Tippett at some point,
Oh, they would have to, because
probably
they'd be
before July, before his no move moves in.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But it's an interesting proposition,
Yeah.
and I think and if they sent Tippett the other way in this deal, I would not complain either.
Yeah, if
So
they want him. I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but chances are they probably wouldn't want the term on that contract because they probably would be trying to reset things there.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Well, it would be good timing to do such a deal, because the Flyers and Blues will be playing each other again. No, tomorrow we're going to talk about that game and so much more. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got questions you want us to answer on the show, like we did today, you can let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.